Hello everybody and welcome to my first video under my channel, The Techie English Teacher, and today I want to talk about AI. And I want to talk about it from my perspective as an English teacher because as a newer English teacher who graduated from undergraduate studies in 2024, AI started to come out as a big thing sort of as I started student teaching / started my first year of teaching. So I feel I have sort of a unique perspective on it because I haven't really taught without AI as a factor, at least English wise. When I was student teaching, I remember distinctly how AI was a huge issue for me, and I had to talk about it with my cooperating teacher a lot, and we had to work together to come up with some strategies on how to combat AI writing because it was the first time I had had that problem. And obviously, in undergrad, we didn't really talk about it because it wasn't really a thing until then. So it was something I didn't feel prepared for or ready to face right away. And so when I had the opportunity as a graduate student to research problems within my own classroom, such as low writing self-efficacy and sort of like things where kids were not doing what they needed to do, where they were just write it off as too hard. And when I was researching methods to kind of help with that, AI came up as a solution, and that sort of shocked me. So I kind of wanted to do a bit of a meditation on how I have come around to AI in the English classroom and how I think we can kind of move forward with it collaboratively instead of working against it constantly. So the way this kind of started for me was I was in my classroom hearing these things all the time. And I'm sure a lot of English teachers or teachers in general can relate that you'd give an assignment and a kid would say, oh, well, this is too hard, or I can't do this, or can you read my whole paper over by tomorrow and let me know what to change? When you're teaching 60 kids, you can't do that for everyone. But this was what presented in my classroom and what I ended up identifying as low self efficacy. These kids didn't believe that they could be successful at writing educational papers. A lot of this was during research paper writing, I will say, which is intimidating, but they didn't believe they could do it without me. They didn't believe they could just sit and write without me. And they also didn't have any ownership over their own learning or autonomy. They didn't think that they could be in charge of how they engaged with the content. So when I was researching solutions, I came up with a couple themes. And there's a lot of research going out right now about AI with writing instruction. If you're interested in specific resources that I'm going to talk about, I will put some links in the description below if you wanted to do your own research and read some like peer-reviewed articles. But the themes that I ended up finding was that AI feedback is a huge thing, that there's a very strong positive correlation between the use of AI assisted feedback in classrooms and an improvement with self efficacy regarding writing. So when the kids had an AI chatbot basically giving them feedback constantly, they were able to sort of increase their self efficacy in their writing. They believed they could do it on their own. And that was only present, however, when teachers were supporting that AI use with appropriate instruction. So, to harness the maximum positive effects, you have to be able to talk to your kids about how to use the AI appropriately and how to apply the feedback. And that sort of plays into my third point here about digital literacy. That's firstly a huge buzzword nowadays. We all know that kids need to know how to engage with current technology appropriately and professionally for their future. But it was also found that like when kids have pre-existing digital literacy, they know how to engage productively with the internet and with online tools. They also engage productively with AI assisted feedback, and they had the skills they needed to apply that feedback successfully. So, if we can talk to our kids and explicitly say, here's how you can apply AI feedback productively for your own writing process, here's how I use it, here's how you can use it, this is where we can kind of see an increase in their ability to just write on their own and not constantly ask for help. Um, it honestly, I used a space that I'm going to talk about briefly in a minute called School AI, where you could create spaces where you give it like a prompt. So I would give it like my research paper description and the rubric, and I would say, please help students with questions or concerns they have about their writing when they're writing this paper. Here's the rubric. And it became really helpful because sometimes I would have a class of 25 and I would have, I don't know, 10 of those kids that had IEPs that said they needed one-on-one support with writing or explicit instruction. And I can't get to 10 kids in a 40-minute period and give them each individualized one-on-one guidance throughout their writing process. It's just too much for me to do in that time period. And I want them to be able to work on pace with their peers who maybe don't need so much support, but I can't do that for every single one of them sometimes. So the school AI spaces became really helpful. And I'll show you a couple examples of what my students did. So I have some screenshots here of two different spaces I created, both around the same exact research paper assignment, just in different years. So the first one on the left-hand side, you can see there's the greeting, and this is sort of originated from my prompt, which was a 3 to 4 page research paper on a topic of choice. And they say, this is a great opportunity to explore something you're passionate about. What topic are you considering? Have you thought about sources? And the student said Roman Empire, and they said, great choice. Such a fascinating topic. Do you have a specific angle? And I didn't screenshot the whole conversation, but this kid ended up saying military strategies. And they gave that kid a couple of categories of military strategies, some recommended search terms for them to put into like a database search bar. And it really helped them go through how they could refine that topic of Roman Empire into a specific research paper topic. On the other one in the middle here, this one says they wanted help with the 1A assignment. So my research paper unit was divided into assignments that were coded with a letter and a number. So the 1A assignment was to do a topic outline where they just do an outline where they do topic sentences for every single little point that they're going to do. So you'll see that the space that I created said, nice, let's tackle it. And then they said, here's a topic outline with a revised thesis. Pick a topic you care about, narrow to a specific question to argue or explain, draft a working thesis, 3 to 5 umbrella ideas, and then 2 to 3 subpoints. And then I didn't copy the whole thing, but underneath, they basically gave the student a template outline where they could just delete the template spots and put in their own points. And it helped that student specifically with formatting and making sure that they covered everything they needed to cover in their outline. And then the final one I put in here specifically because this conversation happened during a class period after I had explicitly given about 10 minutes of instruction on what an annotated bibliography was. And this student clearly didn't understand my instruction or the way I had presented it and needed a different restated way of talking about it. So he said, what is an annotated bibliography? It's a list of sources with a short note describing what your source says. And it went over everything that I went over in class with a slideshow, but this student was able to understand it better. And further down, they asked for an example of an annotation. And the AI chatbot was able to give that student an example. And then they were able to successfully complete the annotated bibliography assignment pretty independently without a lot of help from me. So these are just examples of how I've used AI feedback to sort of answer these little questions that I would normally be running around the room with like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get to all of these students. Instead, now I can get to all of them individually all at once with this tool that gives them immediate feedback aligned with my project description and my rubric a lot of the times. So why use AI? I know how not only intimidating, but often frustrating it can be to try and deal with AI in the classroom. I know I was very frustrated initially because I didn't understand how these kids could not write. They couldn't write analytically. They didn't want to. They were lazy. That was my mindset. And it's frustrating because you see these kids that don't know how to write or don't want to write. And so they have these tools now that can make them write, can write for them. And that they're not forced to write anyways, even if they don't want to. And the way that I sort of came around to it was I sort of realized that AI is not going to go away. As much as we may like it to go away, it's not going to. And the goal as a teacher is really to prepare our students for what they're going to see when they graduate, especially as high school level teachers. I teach seniors in high school, so it's obviously at the forefront of my mind when I'm teaching my kids, what can I give them through English that can help them become successful adults. And a lot of that, I talk to them about critical thinking and adapting to AI usage now. I talk to them about critical reading skills and how they need to understand what they're reading and analyze media and make sure that they understand misinformation when they see it. And AI has just become a part of that now, just as analyzing the online news has become a thing, analyzing political satire has become a thing now. It wasn't a while ago, but now it is a part of the skills they need to go out in the world and be successful. So I think of it as preparing my students for the world that is, not what it was. And I think that's a tough thing to acknowledge, that the world is not the same as it once was, perhaps when we were in school. But they need to be able to critically engage with AI and understand when it's giving you false information, when it's helpful, when it's giving you truthful information, and when it's appropriate to use it at a job, in your personal life, or in an educational setting. The one thing I want to cover is the AI paper. So, obviously, if they're asking AI for feedback and help, that's great, and that's what we want them to do. But I often still get the fully AI copy pasted ChatGPT paper. I get it all the time. And I have four things that I've sort of tried out and mostly work here and there with kids when you have a paper you suspect is AI. Because this is tricky because often there's no really concrete way to prove that it's AI written. And like you can put it through an AI checker, but then like I get weird about that because it's AI checking AI and it's hard. And if it's the kid's word against yours at the end of the day, especially if they or their parent want to fight your decision to give them a 0 for plagiarism. So there's a couple things. So the one thing is the document history. This sort of like evades the whole problem in itself. You can require students to share a document with you, especially on Google Docs, and you can request edit access so you can see their revision history. Now, obviously, is not going to like stop the kids who like copy the thing by typing the whole entire ChatGPT response by hand. But in my mind, if they're so committed to not writing that they do that, they're still technically writing, and maybe it's not as brain heavy, but it's really inconvenient, and they're really committed to the game if that's what they want to do. The other thing you can do is own the document. So a lot of the times what I've done is I've created a Google Doc and shared it with them that I'm the owner of it. And then that way I can in the settings actually completely ban them from copying and pasting into the document. They can't even do it. So then they are forced to type. They can't do anything else in there. All they can do is type. They can't copy and paste anything from another website. And that sort of makes it difficult enough that they give up. The vocab question, this one I use when you have one of those students who's a struggling writer and then all of a sudden turns in this amazing piece of work that you're like, I definitely know you didn't write this, but I can't prove it. I'll pick a word that I'm almost positive that kid does not know, like a higher level word, and I'll be like, hey, do you happen to know what the word perfunctory means? Could you explain it to me? Because I don't know what it means. Like, I'll play dumb. And when they can't explain it, I'll be like, well, why'd you use it in the paper? And then they sort of scramble a little bit. And I'm like, is it maybe because someone helped you with your paper, such as ChatGPT? And they're like, well, and that's usually when it comes out that they used AI. And then that's when we have the different conversation of, okay, what can we move forward with? And that sort of like plays into this honest ask thing. Sometimes you ask a kid and they will tell you. I had several kids that I went up to them and I'm like, hey, did you use AI on your paper? And they would like sigh and put their head down. Yeah. And then sometimes it led to a conversation about why they used AI. Because then it was like, oh, well, I had a game and then I had all this homework and I had a test on this day and then I just did not have time. And then that would lead to the conversation of, okay, next time, ask for an extension. Talk to me about when you can turn it in reasonably. Like the honest ask sometimes can lead to a lot of really good conversations with kids about why they're using AI on these assignments. Is it because writing is so difficult that it's frustrating for them and they need extra help? Is it because they had a lot going on and they need an extension? And you use it kind of as a learning moment to be like, here's how you handle this without just cheating on your assignment. And it helps get them to develop those skills of like, here's what I can do instead of copying and pasting an essay from ChatGPT. And the last thing I do when I have been able to prove that AI is used on the paper, I give my kids a choice where they can do one thing or the other. So either they can redo the paper for a better grade, and I'll write them up for plagiarism. So then they get like a detention or whatever. Or they get a 0, but I'm not going to write them up for a disciplinary infraction. So there's no disciplinary write up on their record for plagiarism, but they get a 0 on the assignment as if they didn't do it. So this is interesting because then some of the kids will just take the 0. They just take a 0 on it and they're like, I don't want to do it. I'll just take the 0. Please don't write me up. And other ones are like, oh, well, I want the grade. I really need it. My grade doesn't isn't in a good place. I don't need a 0 right now and there. Just write me up, give me the detention. I'll redo the paper on my own. And that sort of gets you to get to know the kid and what they value a little bit. So some of them take the 0 out of 100 or whatever, and some of them would rather redo it. And then you get to see what they actually come up with afterwards, which is really cool. But I'm hoping these are kind of helpful for you because I found these sort of help me get through the tough situation of I know this paper was all ChatGPT, but I just can't fully prove it concretely. The final thing I want to show you guys is this job listing. There are many, many, many job listings that look like this, training AI chatbots and helping them with programming and things like that. This is what our kids are facing a lot of the time. They see jobs like this, or they don't see jobs because they've been replaced by AI models. And this is not something that's going to go away. It's picking up steam and it's really starting to permeate every aspect of our lives. We need to be able to embrace and work with it, not against it. And I'm really hopeful that this video has helped you to think about AI in a different way regarding at least English teaching, and think about how maybe you can integrate it. And obviously, if I ever come up with some new stuff, I'll probably do another video. I'm still learning. I'm still a very new teacher, and I'm learning what works best for me. And I'm trying things, and I encourage you to keep trying things and seeing what works for your kids and for your classroom, because this is all kind of what works for me. And we never know what might work for another person or their kids because every single classroom is different. But I hope that this is helpful. Once again, I will put some links in the description to some peer-reviewed articles about AI feedback in the classroom and how it helps with writing. If you did want to look into it, or even show your principal or something if you wanted to propose buying an AI tool like Magic School or whatever. But please let me know if you have any questions. You can write them in the comments. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed.